think the first breakthrough was when I started earning income that I didn't work for. That
Mm.
was like, whoa, because that never happened for me when I was 14, all the way up into that point. So this is like, a span of like 6 or 7 years that I've worked, and I'm just feeling like that's why I had the three jobs, because I'm like, man, I just got to find a way to get more. But then I realized, wait a minute, like I don't have to do it all by myself. I could have a team of people, and I could have a system set up where there's some leverage there. And you mean to tell me I could actually work less and make more? It's like, whoa.
Hello, welcome to the Shattered Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Melvin Larry. We're sharing wisdom from life's turning points and defining moments. I'm so excited right now to be here with my friend, my colleague, my partner, just an all-around great guy, Mr. Eddie Bales Jr. He is one has really been a big help to me in a lot of ways in this podcast space and having a lot of success himself. He's mentored a lot of people in business. He's helped a lot of people. He's made some great income himself, just doing some phenomenal things. So welcome to the Shattered Mindset, my guest, Eddie Bales Jr. How you doing, sir?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on the show.
I'm so glad that you are here, man. You and your wife played a pivotal role when I was trying to figure this thing out. I'm like, okay, what's the name? You say, well, I got this idea, my wife's got this idea, and we were kind of tossing some things around. And man, I appreciate you all's input in helping me to just think about some things. And I ran some things by you in the very beginning of looking at podcasting. You've done three times more than I have in this space. And so I'm just excited to have you here. So welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good. Look, man, do me a favor. Take us back and tell us, like, what was like before you stepped into entrepreneurship and, that mindset, college student and so forth. And what mindset kind of shift had to happen, for you to break from that version of yourself?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how far back to go because there's several backstories, but I'll try
Or
to.
as you want to.
Yeah. So, well, let me just say it this way. I grew up in a household that was middle class, and so it's not like we struggled, but it's also not like we had the best of the best, if that makes sense, because I had, like four or five siblings, you know, and so, you know, I'll just be honest. I got talked about sometimes and teased in school because I didn't have the newest Jordans and the freshest and all that, the fresh new stuff that was out. And so there was a point in my life where I was just like, man, I'm gonna get me a job and I'm gonna get whatever I want to get, And so at 14 years old, I started working, and it was exciting because I was able to buy whatever I wanted to buy. But I only had the job just to get what I wanted to get. But then I started noticing other people where, like, I knew it wasn't like long term for me, but I saw other people where it was long term. I was like, wow, like this is where they have to be every day for 8 hours, right? I'm just here to get some extra money, and they're here like this is how they're going to live their life and pay their bills. And I started kind of noticing that. And I started looking at the differences between them and the owners because it was a small little like mom and pop shop, it was like a wholesale company that sold candy and tobacco and all that good stuff. So anyway, long story short, I was really like observing the owners because I wanted to kind of be in their position at some point where I could have the leverage and I could, just do better. So anyway, long story short, I'm in school and I'm like, man, you know what? I'm gonna start selling candy from this store wholesale and sell it retail in the school, right? And that's what I did. And the funny thing is, people were coming up to me so much that I was late oftentimes for class
Mm,
because everybody was coming to get candy from me before class. So
candy
this is when
man.
I'm like, man, this is awesome. I'm coming into class with a pocket full of change and stuff like that. And this is where my mind started really going like, wow, this is pretty awesome. I can get anything I want to get. And there's one other part of the backstory is my father used to cut my hair too. And he was just figuring it out. So he did what I call the bowl cut. If you know what the bowl cut is, it looks like somebody put a bowl over your head and just went like this and just went all the way around. So I got talked about for all of that, my haircut, my shoes, my clothes, all of that stuff. And it just didn't help me in my development stages growing up with my confidence. So that's why I was like, man, I'm gonna figure this out, and I'm gonna have my own money and get whatever I want, and nobody's gonna talk about me anymore,
Yeah,
right?
we
And,
call that the Soup Bowl haircut.
okay, yeah, I always call it a bowl cut. But so yeah, so that was pretty much like the what ushered me into entrepreneurship literally at 14 because I started realizing like, wow, I could pretty much make as much as I want to make because as long as there's demand and I keep supplying, they're gonna keep buying from me, right? And so I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool.
So, what
Uh,
would you say were the outside forces that contributed to your mindset at that young age?
just okay. So another thing is I grew up watching MTV Cribs, saying one day that could be me,
Yeah.
and really I thought I was going to go to the NBA. Like I'm pretty good even right now in basketball, but I thought like every young kid, we all wanted to be like Michael Jordan, and which by the way he's still the goat. So we'll just
I'm
kind of
not
squash
going
that
there.
conversation right there. But so everybody wanted to be like Jordan, and I knew that if I want to have this MTV crib lifestyle, I didn't rap, I didn't dance, I didn't sing, and I thought I would make the NBA. Obviously, that didn't work, and so I knew at that point that the only thing left that was really going to separate me because I just never wanted to be avid. I just had this mindset where like I'm going to be better than avid. I'm going to be very very successful. And I don't know, it's just something inside of me that has always been part of who I am. So I knew at that point that entrepreneurship had to be the vehicle that would be my thing.
Well, people hear all kind of motivational messages and exposures and so forth, but why do you believe so many people stay stuck even after hearing motivational messages or inspirational messages or attending events and so forth? Why do you think people stay stuck?
I think so because if everybody's stuck, it's okay to be stuck, right?
Mm.
And especially from a mindset standpoint, because if my friends are in this position and my parents are in this position and everyone around me is this way, then this is just the norm. We just finished reading the book The Dream Giver, and if you're in the land of familiar and everybody around you is ordinary, it's okay to be ordinary. So if you're the one person that steps out the box and says, "Hey, I'm going to do something different," then now you actually have to go against the grain, which makes it more challenging.
That's not easy to go against the grain, and I think that going against the grain kind of depends upon your personality because some people they kind of live in and for chaos. So going against the grain is nothing for them. But then there are some people who are more low key, less controversial, and don't want to push back and so forth. And so maybe it's a little different. But what would you say was a turning point for you, especially with you stepping into entrepreneurship? And you built a successful business where you're influencing wow over 3,000 people over more than half the country. And you know what kind of mindset was required to for you to sustain that and build upon that, which separates you from the average or ordinary person like in the book?
I think the most important thing is my faith in God.
Mm.
That's the most important thing because I've had a lot of tests and a lot of challenges, and He's never failed me. Maybe it didn't happen when I wanted it or how I wanted it to happen, but at the end of the day, it always ended up working out for me. And it started to build my faith muscle. So I believe that I have a higher faith muscle because I've learned to trust God in situations, and He's always shown Himself through.
Well, would you say that that's been the key factor in the times that you've had setbacks? Because a lot of people don't step forward because they're concerned about getting knocked back. And setbacks are a part of life and certainly a part of business. But what basically has really shaped your entrepreneurship journey in the face of setbacks?
Um, I think just knowing that, I heard a quote somebody said, if it has been done, it can be done, and if it can be done, it can be done by you. And I love that quote. It just, to me, it just means that, like, if somebody else did it and already proved that it could be done, then I can do it too. And that's what got me excited is just seeing. I never forget when I got involved with one of my first entrepreneurial ventures that you and I are part of. I saw people who looked like me that were already succeeding on a high level. And I'm thinking, wow, like you don't have to be an MBA. You don't have to be you don't have to be a rapper or any of that stuff. But you could just be a regular person. But take advantage of opportunities that most people wouldn't, and now you can live an extraordinary lifestyle. And I saw people who were living those lifestyles. That also gave me the faith, just knowing that the prototype has already been done. All I got to do is follow the blueprint, and I can have it as well.
Well, what was it that really helped you to see beyond the ability to earn some significant income being in business for yourself and really turning your direction toward making an impact on the lives of people? And I know that I asked you that because I know that you are one who is making a big impact on the lives of other people. You have mentored people and helped other people to earn six-figure incomes and so forth. So you've had some great success in that regard. So what has really helped you to view impact and what took you to that place?
Yeah, so I think because I just remember where I was at and the situation that I've been in, and I just don't like, I really don't like to see people struggle. I don't like to see people in a situation where they're living in lack, because I know what that's like. So, I'm always looking to help somebody that can, change their lifestyle, transform their lives. I heard someone say that you start off focusing on the income, but after a while, you want to get to impact. And I love that because you know I don't know if you've ever been to funerals, and when I think about impact, I go to funerals and I hear what everyone says about somebody, and I says, wow, I wonder what they're going to say about me when I'm not here.
You
I,
know,
I say that to myself all the time, and I find myself wanting to just work backward and think from that place like, okay, when I'm not here, what are people going to say about me? What's going to be my digital footprint for them to say, hey, I have proof that this person has been a phenomenal person. That's been, and it's not just about being a phenomenal person, but just they changed my life.
it's interesting because recently uh, I was at an event. We were both at an event in Baltimore area. I had to leave that event to attend the funeral of one of my two best friends,
Mm.
and I can almost say it's a kind of a compliment in a way to him or an honor to him that, like you were talking about, I was sitting there as people were talking about him, and I was sitting there thinking, man, I hope people will talk about me like they're talking about him. It wasn't about the things that he had accumulated or so much, but about who he was and what he left in people. And so it's such a compliment to know that you can touch people and impact people in a way where that's the thing, that'll make a difference. So, and sometimes we have to make shifts and changes and so forth. So in your podcast, Code Freedom, which, like I said, you put out probably three times more than I have in your podcast. What's an episode that made even you pause and say, "Wow, that one changed me there"?
Um, I had a gentleman on that, he took $300 and turned it in $30,000 in the stock market, right?
Mm.
And so that was a great interview. I had another young lady on that, but this one really kind of touched me. She was talking more or less on the health standpoint, and because I talk about freedom from all aspects, and what good is wealth if you don't have the health? So she was talking about lifestyle changes in terms of health and things like that. And I really resonated with some of the things that she shared, and it caused me to, operate differently in how I eat and things like that because of what I heard in her episode. So that was exciting because, some of that stuff I didn't really know or didn't have full understanding, but she brought it to light. But that had a profound impact on me, just off the top of my head. But there's a few others I could talk about too that really had an impact on me.
Okay, hey man, feel free if you want to. That's
Yeah, well, there's another one with the young lady as well, and we talked about manifesting things, and obviously that goes with the mindset because, we get who we are, not necessarily what we want, and we start attracting things into our world and our reality. And a lot of times we're attracting things based off of who we were when we were 5 years old and don't even know it. Right? Like
wow.
we have all these things that how we were brought up and how we were molded as a child, the thing that we didn't get, right? And then we start looking for it as an adult, and we start looking for it subconsciously and don't even realize it. And we're starting to draw into our reality things that we probably shouldn't have just because we aren't even aware that it's happening. So that's one of the things that really helped me too. Is the first thing is awareness, because once you have awareness, like for me, I can now be aware when I'm triggered by something. I used to react to it, but I know how to just respond in a way where I'm not going to take myself in the wrong direction.
Yeah, that's what I like to talk about here, and it's a whole theme of the podcast, as you well know, is reaching back and looking at the impact that every aspect of your life has had on every aspect of your life. And so you talk about being 5 years old, and we know that something happened at five that you might not remember, but that it has affected who you are today. So if I were to ask you that question, what would you say is something that happened when you were a child? I know you mentioned as a 14-year-old, having your own job and different things like that. But go back even further and tell me something that impacted your life that led you to a place that led you to a place that led you to where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of one thing that is not necessarily when I was five, but it's still in the teenage years, but it's very important because it's really what drove me. Now that I think back on one of your other questions, it's something that really drove me into entrepreneurship, and that was when I played on the basketball team. This was in high school. I was on the varsity team, and I was really good, and but my parents weren't ever able to show up because they were working, and obviously I don't fault them for providing for us. I mean, like I said, I had several siblings, so we had a good sized family there, but but that still affected me, because when you make that shot and you look in the stands and nobody's there. And growing up, you don't feel like you had that encouragement. You don't feel like you had somebody pouring into you saying, "I see you, and you're doing a great job, and I'm proud of you." When you don't hear those words, you start to question yourself, right? and
Yeah.
that's the thing that really started to kind of show up in my adult life, and I had to now be aware of it. So when that's when I said, when I'm triggered, I know and I understand and I'm aware and I recognize it because I've done some self reflection a lot.
So
To
did you find yourself in your adult life looking up in the stands, so to speak?
I do. I do. I still do, because even now, I still play ball now, and I've even asked my wife to show up and come to some of my games because
Yeah.
I played in some adult leagues and stuff like that, just for exercise and stuff.
And we
And
can do that even in business and life. If we're looking for approval, it might be from our leadership or something we want to
absolutely,
know. Hey, we did something. We want to hear them say,
yeah,
"Hey, you did well," "Attaboy," or whatever. And I can see how that could
yeah,
carry over into your life,
yeah.
adult life that way.
And can I say something on that?
Yeah,
Because I've found that in our industry, that's something that's one of the one places that I felt like I did receive that, you know. because you do some great things and you start to get recognized and things like that. It's like, wow, this is great. This is pretty cool. Like people actually know who I am, and I have no idea who they are. And you start saying, wow, like I must be somebody, right? And you start asking yourself. Now, obviously, you don't ever let yourself get the big head, right? So you gotta stay humble and not fall into your own press, if that makes sense. But it does feel good, and that's another thing that helped push me in this endeavor is knowing that I could I could be something to somebody.
Yeah. You speak to men a lot doing your podcast, especially married men and fathers. What's one thing that you think that those men are silently struggling with?
I really think that's one of the things is what I just mentioned is just to feel like they're seen, just to feel like they are valued. Because as men, we do so much and we feel like we got to carry all these weights on our shoulders. And sometimes we just need somebody to say, hey, I see you. Like you doing it. You making it happen. And that's sometimes all we need is just for somebody to be proud of us. You know, I had a pastor who that I was going to his church, and he said he was seeing a therapist, and he said, "Hey, as a pastor, he's like, you're doing this and you're doing that, and you got all these things going on. You got books, and you got this huge church, and you're doing all these amazing things." And she said, "But you know what? I see, I see, I still see a little boy who
Mm.
just wants his dad to be proud of him." And when she said that, it just hit me like a ton of bricks because I'm like, wow, that's me too. Right?
And that's me too. I hear you said that's me too.
Right. And I would venture to say that that's a lot of men, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of men because for many men, either we didn't have our fathers there or our fathers were, I mean, I'm not speaking for our fathers, but, I know the generation ahead of me, they grew up with this little bit of a rough mindset, so to speak, sometimes. And so sometimes we didn't say, I love you. We didn't, sometimes they didn't say, I'm proud of you. They were just hustling and grinding and providing and doing all that they could. And maybe someone never said it to them. So
Yeah.
I don't fault my previous generation, but I definitely want to make sure that I change in this generation.
So because of things like that, and because I came from an environment where my dad came from a generation of being tough and hard and do as I say, not as I do, and
Absolutely.
there was no question was who was the head of the house and the head of the family and all of that, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts and all of that. But as we transition to different generations beyond that, things are different, and sometimes men feel torn, and we can feel torn between who we are and what society looks at us as, and providing for the family, pursuing our purpose, and so forth. So, what do you say to that man who is torn somewhere?
Well, it's funny because I have a coaching program that I'm doing now, and my goal is to help men realize that they can win in business and win at home. And
Mm.
you don't have to have an or, it could be an and, right? Like you could be the king of the house and you can be there and not just give presents, but you can have presence, if that makes sense, right? So it's not just about what you can give, it's about the time and the quality. And so that's why, my wife and I, we raise our nephew. And I'm really mindful as best as I can to spend as much time as I can with them, even while I'm pursuing my passions and dreams and things like that, because I know that that's what I needed.
Okay, well, when you're in the process of building your personal brand, as I know that you are, and your business as well together, how have you really learned to separate or let me just say it this way: how have you learned to separate your identity from your income, or is it all part of the same?
Yeah, that was a big struggle for me, and sometimes I think I still work on that. We're always evolving, I believe, because if the income is down, we have to realize that um, we are not down because our income is down. We can go through a season in life and things are not lining up the way we want to. But and again, that's why I'm really, really big on personal development and working on the mindset because that has happened to me many times where if things are not going the way I wanted to because of the 5-year-old kid, then I start going back to that person and saying, well, maybe I'm not, or maybe I can't, or maybe this wasn't the best, idea. But I have to always continue to go back to my faith in God and go back to my affirmations and go back to my community and just really and just be aware that all of that stuff is happening on the inside, and not let the external forces control the inside. I have to be the thermostat and not the thermometer.
So how did all of those things that's in a conglomeration of things lead you to your podcast, Code Freedom, and what would be the mission or purpose behind that?
Yeah, so because I was working 3 jobs and full time in school and struggling, and you know, I was working, 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 and I felt in that time like I was racing to Friday only to dread Monday. I was always looking at the clock when I was working, like, man, it's 5 o'clock going to get here soon enough. And it was just like, it was a drag because I just felt like I just don't want to be here, but I need to be here because I need the income. And so as I started to develop myself and succeed in business, and I was able to have a level of freedom, I decided, hey, I want to reach back down and help other people who want freedom. But I also realized that freedom is not just the finance side of things; it's everything, right? I mean, because like I said, what's the point of having success financially if our health is failing miserably? So health is wealth. But then also, what's the point of having a succeeding business and maybe feeling healthy, but your relationship, your marriage is crumbling? So like you got to have all these spokes on the wheel and they all have to work together. Now, we're not saying that they're all going to be equal, right? Some of them have to have a little bit more attention at some points in time. There's all about priority and things of that nature. But at the core, we have to know that we can't just go all in on one thing and neglect everything else. We have to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, so as you talk about that whole vision and mission and so forth, you say all often that you went from broke college student to six-figure earner, so which is actually true. But what was the first real breakthrough that you experienced financially, and what effect did that have on you?
I think the first breakthrough was when I started earning income that I didn't work for. That was
Mm.
like, whoa, because that never happened for me when I was 14, all the way up into that point. So this is like, a span of like 6 or 7 years that I've worked, work, 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 work. And I'm just feeling like that's why I had the 3 jobs because I'm like, man, I just got to find a way to get more. But then I realized, wait a minute, like I don't have to do it all by myself. I could have a team of people, and I could have a system set up where there's some leverage there. And you mean to tell me I could actually work less and make more? It's like, whoa. When you start to receive deposits from work that you didn't physically do, it's like, wow, this is pretty interesting. So that was the biggest breakthrough because then I realized, like, wait a minute, I can't actually have that MTV crib lifestyle. And not when I say that, I don't mean about the material things. I'm talking about more or less like I can be what I always wanted. I can be at my kid's game, right? I can show up and we can be at the movies at 2 or 3 in the afternoon and we don't have to ask anybody. Like that's the freedom that I really wanted, not so much the big money. I mean, yes, don't get me wrong, you need money, but more importantly, I wanted to be what I didn't have.
Yeah. So what kind of routines or disciplines did you have to put in place to anchor you to be able to build that to a place that you had not seen before? What are some of the things that did that? And also, what are some of the relationships or mentorships that helped you to move from one mindset to a mindset of a six-figure earner?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about mentors because you got to have mentors and coaches. Mentors and coaches are like time machines. They help you get there faster. And so I had to get mentors and coaches that were willing to pour into me. One of the things my mentor would say often is stop stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. And that resonated with me because I had to start changing my mindset. When I was in a position where I wasn't working anymore, the first thing they said was congratulations. Most people would say, "Oh my gosh, you're not working in a job in corporate America anymore. What are you going to do?" And he said, "Congratulations," And so that kind of shift in mindset is something that I've adopted for myself. In fact, my mentor, he came up with a quote: "It's impossible to stop a man or woman who will not quit." Well, I came up with a quote that kind of goes not with that, but similar. It's impossible to sow good seeds on good ground and not reap a harvest.
Mm.
Um, and that comes from Galatians 6, 7 through 9, because that was me. I kept sowing and sowing and sowing. And even when I didn't see the results happen right away, the more I kept sowing, eventually something led to good ground, and then the harvest started to come. But back to your question, number one, mentors and coaches for sure. But a big part is just working on me because, like I said, um, I grew up. I'm gonna just keep it real. I grew up in the hood, and that's why I thought you had to be a rapper or a dancer or a singer or something like that, or go to the NBA because I didn't see people around me who were living that kind of lifestyle. So I had to change my mindset by reading books. So I would read books every single day. I got to a point where I got obsessed with it. Like I'm obsessed with personal development, and you probably can hear that as I'm talking because I could probably reference 4 or 5 books just from talking because that's the thing that really helped me because I had to adopt these new mindsets that my family didn't have those mindsets. But the people that I was following, they did have those mindsets, and these are the books that they're reading. So if a millionaire says I'm reading this book, guess what? I'm reading that same book too, right? Because if it's helping you, I need it to help me. So that's another discipline, and just daily activity, right? Just daily activity. I was taught that if you're really going to succeed in business, it can't be like a hobby. It has to be, you got to treat it like a job until it pays you like a business. And when I started to understand that, I'm like, okay, this is not a hobby for me. This is serious business. I'm going to treat it like a job. And for a job, I was used to going when I didn't want to go. So in business, I learned I got to do certain things that I may not like. Like sometimes I didn't always like talking to people, right? But I realized, look, if I could sit there and look at a clock for 8 hours that I don't want to be at, I could certainly talk to people.
Hmm.
Right? So some of those are some of the things that I had to really learn in terms of discipline of how I can get to a better place.
So I can see how the personal development has helped you and with some disciplines and some of your thought processes and so forth. But personally, how you personally stay focused, stay motivated? Uh, how do you keep yourself sharp, especially when, excuse me, in your business and your industry, the results don't always come right away and they can fluctuate. So
Mhm. Yeah,
how do you stay sharp? How do you keep from being the person that says, "Man, this is not working for me,"
yeah.
and
Well,
keeping
the
your
biggest
mind
thing,
focused and sharp?
I think the biggest thing is the environment, who you're around, who you're listening to. I heard it said that he who has your ear has your future. And so, and sometimes that ear is what we're saying to ourselves, right? So sometimes it's not even from other people; it's what we're saying to ourselves. So I'm mindful of what I'm saying to myself, but I'm also making sure I get in rooms where people where I can stay motivated and stay inspired. Because, like I said, I hold on to other people's story and realize that if it can happen for them, it can happen for me. So that's one thing is it's being in certain environments where I can be around people so I can think bigger because, Les Brown said, once your mind's been expanded, it can't go back. And once you see certain things, it's hard to not see it. So that's one thing. Another thing though, back to the faith in God is just knowing that like, he's not going to let me fail. I mean, if he put me on this earth with a certain purpose and certain things that I'm supposed to do, then no matter what, I may run into a speed bump, I may have some setbacks, but at the end of the day, more is for me than against me, right? So if he put it, I'm just I can't lose. To me, it's like a fixed fight. You know what I mean? And I know I'm gonna win, even if I feel like at this in a certain season I'm not winning. I know that I'm going to.
So when you think about yourself coming up and you think about how you're an integral part of your nephew's life and growth and so forth, what are some things about the 18-year-old Eddie you want to make sure that your nephew knows about and going through his teen years and so forth that could make an impact on his life?
Yeah, I want him to have confidence, and I always tell him. I'll come back to that. Um, One of the things I teach him a lot. I've been teaching him since he was younger, and we do affirmations on the way to school and things like that. And I would tell him, "Hey, you're a leader, not a follower." So even today, we're still telling them that you're a leader, not a follower. So you don't have to do what everyone else around you is doing. You can take the path of least resistance, but you're equipped to do it. So having him say certain affirmations so that he has a certain belief level about himself, so that he had the confidence to do things, even if it's like scary, even if it's like unknown, even if it's things that are challenging. I believe that he can have the skills and the tools to do it because we're doing affirmations. And now we got to get back to it. We kind of got off a little bit. I'm gonna be honest, but those things we did as you in his development years as he was growing up, and I think some of that is still there. But he hears some of the audios in the car while he's riding with me. He hears the conversation. So some of it is just what he's catching. They say more is caught than taught. So some of it is what he's catching, not always what I'm saying too.
That's all about, hearing things and taking lessons and learning from that. And, learning lessons is something that you have to be conscientious of. Sometimes you can see things that's an experience. And, we've talked about before how a person can think something happened to them when it actually can be happening for them. And I even take it a step further when I say, sometimes something happens to you, but it may be something that happened for you, but it also may be something that happened for someone else,
Mm-hmm.
and so and it gives us an opportunity to think beyond ourselves. What's a time in your business experience that you faced a lesson that you really had to learn the hard way?
I would say starting to earn some income and not doing the right things with it,
Mm.
not budgeting and not being mindful of like saving and investing and things of that nature, and just feeling like you start to have success and you start to see more income than you've ever seen before, and you start thinking it's just going to always be like that all the time, and just not understanding, you know, that you have to be a steward over those finances too. So that's a lesson that I believe God constantly would remind me of, like, hey, like this is something that I'm going to continue to pull you down until you learn it.
Wow. Continue so you're learning, huh? You're repeating it over and over until you get it, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Wow. That's a hard way to learn, isn't it?
It is. It really
No
is.
doubt about it. So you talked about not knowing exactly how to do what you needed to do with your money when you got it. If you were standing in an auditorium with young guys, I'm sure you already have done that. What's the thing that they need to hear today?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say number one, give first, because when you give, it's always going to come back to you. So you have to have a spirit of giving, and that's
That
what.
could be interpreted a lot of ways. Well, how would you define that then?
Well, I mean, it could be given in terms of finances, but sometimes it's given in terms of time. Maybe you're going to give back at uh, the senior citizen home, right? And spending some time, and you don't realize that that time that you're spending later on, you just built a network somehow that you weren't even trying to build that will pay you later in some other way. And it may not even be financially. It could be a level of advice that you really needed, some wisdom or something. But my point is, when you give, it's always going to come back to you.
Yeah. In business and life and so forth, we have a lot of setbacks and so forth. We have our expectations, like you talked about. You know, you had hopes and dreams, expectations of going to the NBA. And so then you found yourself not in the NBA. And then maybe the same things have happened in business where you might have thought, I thought I would be at this level when I'm not at that level. How do you handle those things? I mean, even when I mean, that's a big letdown. I remember my son wanted to be in the NFL. He worked hard for it. He was all county, all this and all that, but it didn't happen. So, how do you handle those setbacks and letdowns yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still handling those things because there's certain levels I'm still working on that I knew that I thought that, hey, I should be there, right? But the thing is, like you said earlier, things don't happen to us; they happen for us. So, I've started to realize that my journey is my journey, and I started to appreciate my journey, because there's a reason why I'm on the journey. I don't always know what it is sometimes, but and sometimes you don't even like it. but I started to learn to like it. I started to learn to like and love the journey because that's really where the growth happens in the journey, not so much the destination. You know,
Yeah.
so so I started to really just like really start to appreciate the journey and realize that like, hey, things don't always have to go my way. Things are not going to always happen the way I want it to happen. However, um, if I just continue to put my head down and work and work on myself and work on my business and my craft and the things that I have, then great things are going to happen.
So, what do you think that you'd like for people to know about Eddie Bells Jr. that maybe people don't know now?
um, a lot of people don't know that I play the piano. Yeah, yeah. So
I
that's one
remember
thing.
learning that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it's a big deal or anything, but I used to teach lessons and things like that. And that's a whole other lesson of things that I've learned. But that's something maybe interesting that maybe people don't know. Um, Another thing I think is, well, you know that I love basketball, and I'm trying to think what else.
But think about it this way. What do you want people to know about who you are?
Yeah, I think I want people to know that um, I really want to see people win. And I really want to see people succeed. And I really hate to see people suffer and be in lack and things of that nature. So I really have a heart for people to live their best life. And so that's the biggest thing is that I feel like we can all win. And there's a certain thing that we got to do to get there. And I'm one of those people that want to help you do it.
Yeah. So what's next for you, my friend? I mean, any new books or projects or movements that you're focusing on right now? What's the next move?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned it, but I'm doing some coaching now for married men over 35 who feel like they're winning in business but losing at home. So that's one of the things that I'm doing now is just working on helping them. So I have a program that we can help them with to help them to get from where they are to where they're looking to go. I'm also doing some digital products, so you'll see some of that stuff come out. I did write a 5-step guide to financial freedom that could help people. Uh, but I'm also working on a bunch of other things that I feel like, because my goal is I feel like I've learned a lot and I've done a lot. And I just feel like I just want to leave a legacy for people so that they
Wow,
can have them
that's
tools
great.
to help them to get to where they need to go, to their destination.
So, my friend, just if you would just please let us know where people can reach you.
Yeah, so I mentioned my 5-step guide to financial freedom that I have. I want to actually give that as a gift to everybody. So you could actually go to codefreedom.net, and you can get that free 5-step guide. But you can find me everywhere. I'm on all platforms. So if you want to just look my name up, Eddie, and then it's Bails, right? Make sure you spell it right, and you'll find it. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, everywhere. So I'm happy to connect with you, and you can see some of our content.
And that's great. I'm excited to have had an opportunity to have you on here today. Any final words that you want to leave for this audience?
Yeah, first off, I appreciate you for allowing me to be on. I feel honored to be on. I don't take it for granted because obviously you could have invited anyone. So I'm thankful that you invited me. I think one of the big things that I would say with people is, just keep working on yourself because when you work on yourself, everything else is going to work out. There's always something that we can do. Like we always point the fingers often at everyone around us, but what can we do to become better? Like I said, I go back to that word awareness because now that I have a level of awareness on certain things, now I see the changes that I need to make.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage everybody. There's always something that you can do to get to where you want to go. We just have to be willing and diligent enough to seek those things out. And the beauty of it is we live in the information age. So there's no shortage of information, especially now we got AI. I
Oh,
mean, I love AI right now. Oh my goodness. AI is like my best friend almost right now. But my point is that we have information right at our fingertips, but it's like if we have a Ferrari outside and it's all gassed up, but we never get out and drive it, then what's the point of it? All right, so I just want to encourage everybody get in, drive it, and go to where you need to go. And that all comes by working on ourselves, becoming better, and just constantly looking, keeping your faith in God. That's the most important thing. Is that's something that I had to work on a lot of times too. Is in the Dream Giver, it talks about don't go after the dream so much that you're neglecting the dream giver.
right,
And
right.
so, anytime things are not going the way they need to go, sometimes it's a spiritual attack, and sometimes we just need to put ourselves back in alignment, and make sure that we're putting Him first.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, sir, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you sharing, your knowledge with us. It's so much deeper. I could have gone with that because, you've done so much. And you talk about AI, man. I didn't even touch and scratch the surface on social media because you're a guru in that area. But thank you so much for sharing. And so, with that, listen. I'm just going to leave this with you all. Uh, as Mr. Eddie Bells Jr. has shared with you, just go out and listen. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from. And listen, and don't forget who the dream giver is. Listen, until next time, take care, take charge, keep pushing, keep adapting, keep adjusting, keep moving for higher horizons. We'll see you next time on the Shattered Mindset podcast. Good day.